A couple of summers ago, my friends and I decided to visit Lily at her family's farmhouse. She had been inviting us for weeks, saying it was a perfect spot to hang out away from the city. The farmhouse was old and creaky, but it had its charm. The first night was great. We played games and laughed a lot. Do you also like watching horror stories? So turn off the lights of your room and close the door, and stay till the end of the video. Lily was so happy to have us there. But the next morning, things changed. After breakfast, we decided to explore the woods behind the house. It was a nice day, and we figured we'd take some pictures and just enjoy being outside. We walked for a while, chatting and joking, but when we turned around to check on Lily, she was gone. At first, we thought she was just taking her time, maybe admiring the view or something. We called her name, but got no response. My stomach sank as we waited. After about 15 minutes, we started to panic. "Let's go back to the house," Sarah suggested, her voice shaking. We hurried back, calling for her again, but the house was empty. We checked every room, but there was no sign of Lily. "She must have gone somewhere," I said, trying to stay calm, but I could feel the worry building inside me. We decided to search the woods again, this time with flashlights since it was getting darker. The sun was setting, and the shadows made everything feel eerie. We yelled her name over and over, our voices echoing in the trees. After a while, we thought we heard something, a faint call. We ran toward it, but it faded away. "Lily?" I shouted, hoping she would respond. Nothing. It felt like we were in a nightmare. We searched for hours. Every time we thought we spotted something, maybe a piece of her clothing or a footprint, it turned out to be nothing. Finally, we gave up and headed back to the farmhouse. My heart was racing, and fear was gripping me. What if something had happened? What if she was hurt? When we got back, I called the police. They came quickly and listened as we explained everything. They started searching the area but found nothing. They told us to stay put and promised they would keep looking. That night, we huddled together in the living room, waiting for news. The darkness outside felt suffocating. My mind raced with thoughts of Lily. Where could she be? As the hours dragged on, I kept thinking about how we had all just been having fun, and now she was missing. The police left after a few hours, saying they'd keep us updated, but they didn't sound hopeful. The next day was even worse. We searched again but had to face the truth: Lily was gone. It was like she had just vanished. Weeks passed, and there was still no sign of her. We learned to live with the fear and confusion, but nothing ever made sense. The girl disappeared, and no one knew why or how. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that we missed something important. It's a weight I'll carry forever. I grew up on a farm, where the closest neighbor was miles away. My days were filled with running around outside, playing with the animals, and pretending to be an explorer in my own backyard. One summer afternoon, I was playing in the courtyard with my favorite doll. She had long, tangled hair and a pretty dress that I loved to change. I took her everywhere. That day, I was just playing and daydreaming when I noticed my doll had rolled away. I thought it was strange, but kids don't think too much about those things. I followed her into the old storeroom behind the barn. The door creaked open, and I could feel a chill as I stepped inside. The room was dark and cluttered, filled with old tools, dusty boxes, and forgotten things. In the corner, I spotted an old, torn doll. It looked like it had been there for years, maybe even decades. Its face was dirty, and one eye was missing. I felt a weird pull towards it. I picked it up, and my heart raced. It was so different from my doll, like a ghost of a toy that had once belonged to someone else. I turned it over in my hands, and that's when I noticed a strange feeling in my stomach. I didn't know why, but I felt like I had to take it home. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought it might bring my doll some new friends. I ran back outside, leaving the old doll cradled in my arms, and put it next to my own on the porch. For days, I played with both dolls. But then, things started to get weird. I'd find my original doll in places I hadn't left her. One morning, I found her sitting on the edge of my bed, and I swear I had left her outside. I thought maybe I was just forgetting where I put her. But then I noticed the old doll. I would catch glimpses of it moving, or at least it seemed like it had shifted slightly from where I had left it. I told my mom about it, but she just laughed it off, saying old toys can sometimes have a life of their own. I didn't think much of it at first, but the feeling in my stomach grew stronger. It felt like the old doll was watching me, waiting for something. One night, I woke up to a soft sound. It was so quiet, I thought it was just the wind. But then I felt a cold breeze brush past my face, and when I opened my eyes, I saw both dolls sitting on the floor, facing me. I blinked, thinking I was dreaming, but when I looked again, the old doll was leaning slightly forward, as if it was trying to get closer. I could almost hear a whisper in my mind, something I couldn't quite understand. After that night, I was too scared to sleep with them in the room. I put the old doll back in the storeroom, hoping that would end it. But the unease never left me. I felt like something was stuck to me, like a shadow I couldn't shake off. To this day, I can't explain what happened in that storeroom, or why I was drawn to that old doll. But there's one thing I believe for sure, there is a soul inside the doll, and it's watching, waiting, and maybe even wanting something from me. One spring afternoon, my friend Jake and I decided to take a picnic out at his family's farmhouse. It's a lovely place with old wooden beams and a big, open yard surrounded by trees. We thought it'd be the perfect day. After we ate, we wandered off for a walk. The sun was shining, and everything felt peaceful. But soon, I noticed Jake wasn't his usual self. He kept glancing over his shoulder, like he was expecting someone to be behind him. I asked if he was okay, and he shrugged it off, saying he just felt a little uneasy. I didn't think much of it, maybe he was just overthinking things. As we walked deeper into the fields, I noticed a small patch of trees off to the side. It looked kind of inviting, so I suggested we check it out. The moment we stepped closer, though, Jake stopped. He looked at me with wide eyes and said, "I don't like it here. Can we just go back?" I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But there was something in his tone that made me feel uneasy. Still, we kept walking. I figured I'd lighten the mood, so I started telling a funny story. But Jake wasn't laughing. He was scanning the area like he was waiting for something to jump out. I asked him again what was up, and he whispered, "It feels like someone's watching me." I told him it was just the trees and animals, but deep down, I started to feel it too. It was weird. The atmosphere felt heavier, like the air was thick. We decided to head back to the farmhouse, and that's when things got strange. As we walked, Jake suddenly stopped and turned pale. He said he felt a presence near the trees, something that didn't feel right. I rolled my eyes, but when I looked back at the patch of trees, I swear I saw something move. Just a flash, but it made my stomach drop. We hurried back, but Jake kept looking back, like he couldn't shake the feeling. Once we got back to the farmhouse, Jake was really quiet. I thought maybe he just needed a moment. We sat on the porch, and I tried to cheer him up, but he just stared off into the distance. It felt like something was off about him. He didn't say much, just kept looking around, like he was waiting for someone or something. As the sun started to set, I felt a chill. The peaceful day turned into something darker. I finally asked Jake if he wanted to talk about what was bothering him. He looked at me, his eyes wide, and said, "I think something followed us back." His voice trembled, and I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. But then he started to act strange. He seemed distant, like he wasn't really there. It was as if a shadow had crept in behind him. I can't explain it, but it felt like a spirit had entered my friend. I didn't know what to do. We sat in silence, and all I could think was, whatever he felt out there, it hadn't left him. That day still haunts me. What was in those trees? And why did Jake seem so different afterward? I don't know if I'll ever go back to that farmhouse again.